I'm Steve Kornacki in for Brian Williams. Day 519 of the Trump administration. And tonight, there's a new report that the Department of Health and Human Services is taking action to try to reunify families separated at the border. Politico reporting that according to an internal document, the Department of Health and Human Services has created a, quote, unaccompanied children reunification task force, a first step toward reunifying thousands of migrant children in the agency's custody with their families. Earlier today, a senior Department of Homeland Security official confirmed to NBC that about 500 children and parents have been reunited since May. And we saw one today, a mother from Guatemala who was reunited in Maryland with her 7-year-old son. They had been separated at the border a month ago. As the administration attempts to deal with President Trump's executive order ending the separation policy, he is also now firing back at his critics. This afternoon at the White House, the president hosted families whose children have been killed, allegedly, by undocumented immigrants.
We're gathered today to hear directly from the American victims of illegal immigration. You know, you hear the other side, you never hear this side. You don't know what's going on. These are the American citizens permanently separated from their loved ones. They're not separated for a day or 2 days. These are permanently separated because they were killed by criminal illegal aliens.
And just hours before that, the president sent this out on Twitter, quote, "We cannot allow our country to be overrun by illegal immigrants as the Democrats tell their phony stories of sadness and grief, hoping it will help them in the elections." Democrats have been getting out their message today on the House floor. Democrat Ted Lieu playing the audio recording first obtained by ProPublica of crying migrant children separated from their families.
The gentleman will suspend.
For what reason, Madam Speaker?
The gentleman is in breach of quorum.
Cite the rule, Madam Speaker.
Rule 17 of the House.
There's
that
no
prohibits
rule that says I
Rule
can't play
17.
sounds.
The gentleman will suspend.
Why are you trying to prevent the American people
Rule
from listening to what it
17
sounds
of
like
the
in a
House
detention
prohibits
facility?
the use
These are
of that
babies and
device.
kids in a detention facility. Why do you not let the American people hear what they are saying?
Meanwhile, Democratic Senators Martin Heinrich, Richard Blumenthal, and Tom Udall were in Tornillo, Texas, where they tried to visit a detention facility where 250 migrant children are being held. The senators were denied access, though.
I just think this is an administration that is completely afraid of transparency, is afraid of the media.
I think it's an internment site with tents. It's a prison-like internment site.
Also today, lawmakers' efforts to deal with the immigration crisis got something of a blow from the president, who's been demanding that Congress take action. Earlier in the week, Donald Trump met with House GOP leadership, said he would support legislation. This morning, though, the president tweeted this, quote, "Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration until after we elect more senators and congressmen women in November. Dems are just playing games, have no intention of doing anything to solve this decades-old problem. We can pass great legislation after the red wave." And that brought this reaction from Republicans on Capitol Hill.
I respectfully disagree. I think we should continue to work on it.
I think what you're seeing is President Trump expressing his frustration. We need a red wave to get more Republicans who want to actually vote to secure our border.
It's going to have an incredible chilling effect on the possibility of immigration moving forward.
I think we'll have a very constructive bill on the floor next week.
Let's bring in our leadoff panel for this Friday night. Franco Ordonez, White House correspondent for McClatchy Newspapers, covering immigration and foreign affairs. The New York Times' Katie Benner, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter who covers the Justice Department. And Yamiche Alcindor, White House correspondent for NewsHour on PBS. Thanks to all of you for being with us. And Katie, let me start on you. We have that reporting tonight about some movement on that issue of reunifying parents with children, at least some of them. You cover the Justice Department, the legal end of this. It sounded like there was still plenty of confusion when that executive order was issued the other day by the president about what that was actually going to allow in terms of reunification. How clear is that now?
Absolutely. So, as you say, this was another self-inflicted wound by the Trump administration, not thinking through clearly enough a directive before issuing it. And so we saw a lot of confusion last night. There was a meeting at the White House where people argued back and forth for at least 90 minutes about what to do. Things do seem to have clarified somewhat. At the heart of this, the Justice Department helped draft the executive order, so they believe that their legal interpretation of this is correct, which is based around what they are calling a zero-tolerance policy for people crossing the border legally. And then other components, including Border Patrol at DHS, has pushed back and said, we just don't think that we can do both. We cannot keep families together and continue to do zero tolerance. Today, it seems like we got the components together and that they did come to somewhat more of a position where they're all on the same page, hewing more closely to zero tolerance.
And it seems that the president on this, obviously, especially after issuing that executive order, trying to talk about other facets of the immigration issue, maybe change the subject, maybe throw more balls in the air, however you want to look at it. Let's look at those different components. Franco, to you, on the political component on Capitol Hill, we had the president there a couple days ago talking to Republicans, carrying the message of, hey, I'm with you. Get some immigration reform. Let's get this done. Then today going on Twitter and saying, you know what? Democrats are just getting in the way. We can't do anything till after November anyway. Politically on Capitol Hill, what were the odds of some action taking place on immigration between now and the election? And what are the odds now after that tweet from Donald Trump?
I mean, the odds were pretty low before. It was a heavy lift from the start. That's why the moderate proposal was punted supposedly to the next week in the first place. But then when Trump issued that tweet, it really let the air out of any more energy. I thought of all the members that spoke in that clip that you shared, Mark Sanford, I thought was of South Carolina, was the most honest in saying, look, it's going to be really hard to do it now. Let's remember that Paul Ryan and other leaders at the beginning of this debate said they need Trump's support. They need his backing. We don't want to bring anything to the floor unless we know for sure that this is something that he's going to support. This, obviously, he's not going to support. I think we're just hearing a lot of talk and trying to say this is supportive, but this does not look like it's going to work. And maybe it's for the best. You really, for moderate Republicans, this was going to be really tough to get done. And Trump was walking kind of a tightrope here. He didn't want to go too hard and hurt moderate publics, but if he didn't go hard enough, he was going to hurt his base.
Yeah, and Yamiche, the other piece of what Donald Trump was saying today on the issue of immigration had to do with that event with families there, with family members who they say had been the victims of crimes, they say, committed by illegal immigrants. This is something the president has talked about before as a candidate, a couple times as president. Does seem striking that he's trying to do it today in the wake of all the issues with children at the border. You have been covering Trump and the reaction from some of his supporters, some of his base. How does something like what he's doing today kind of mesh with what his base is looking for?
Well, his base is looking for exactly what the president did today. He took that message of America first and really made it something that was about whether or not you support these. Asking the question, really, do you support migrant kids in cages, or do you support families whose loved ones have allegedly been killed by undocumented immigrants? He posed that question to his base. They choose America. They choose this idea that you have to not look at these kids in cages and be appalled, that you have to instead pivot and look at these families. The fact that he continually said that these are families that are permanently separated from their loved ones, making light of the fact that being separated from your child for a month or 2 months or even 8 months in some cases, that's not as hard as your child being gone forever. So there's this idea that he really wanted to get back to his roots because, this week was really, really tough for the president. He does not step back. He does not take back his actions. And this week he had to actually say, you know what? He had to admit on paper in an executive order that this was not something that could work out, that he had to actually undo a policy that he thought was going to deter undocumented immigrants. So I think that the president was feeling a little wounded, and as a result, he did this. I talked to a White House official a couple hours ago who said that the president still supports both of the bills that are in the House, but that person is saying that all on background, not wanting to put their name on the record, and the president is not tweeting that out. He's not saying, hey, I still am excited about these two bills. I hope that they pass. Instead, he's really saying, you're wasting your time. Let's just make it a midterm issue.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, Yamiche. I think it was Ryan Costello, Republican Republican congressman from Pennsylvania. He's not running again. He got a tough break there in the redistricting and said, that's it, I'm not going again. And he's been a little bit more outspoken maybe since then. His reaction to what you just said from Donald Trump today was he said, hey, the calculation is clear here. The president just wants to be blaming Democrats rhetorically on this. Is there a strategy that you see there between now and November that's, hey, not about policy, not about legislation, about the rhetoric of the campaign?
I think so. I think that this president wants to say, if you want stronger immigration laws, if you want to actually get something done, that you need to have more Republicans. The White House official today talked to me and said that the Republicans don't have enough of a majority. There's this idea, of course, that everyone knows that Republicans have control of both the presidency, the House, and the Senate. But now they're saying we don't have enough Republicans to get things through, and that we need to get rid of some more of these Democrats. And I think that that's really important because the president also sees that Democrats were having a really tough time and are still having a really tough time getting a message together. But kids in cages really grabbed the attention of the whole nation. And even Republicans who have never really criticized the president came out and said, this is wrong. Paul Ryan, all these other Republicans on Capitol Hill, evangelicals that are backing the president because of his stance on abortion, and Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, they also said we cannot have this. So the president needs to get this narrative back. And the way he wants to do that is by making it a midterm issue.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.